How bad do you think real estate investors feel right now? What do you think? I certainly know with the friends that I have that are investing in real estate, everyone's nervous. Everyone is trying to figure out which way this market is going to go. Everyone's trying to figure out, is the interest rates going to come down? Everyone has been violently reminded again that the interest rates and the government are exactly what's in control of your life if you are a real estate investor. And I look at where we're at right now, and I look at the likelihood of capital leaving real estate, especially as this storm brews. The storm is known as Bitcoin. And these are the conversations that I want to have right now, because I think these are important for allowing people to understand who are in legacy assets. People like my parents who have got a property portfolio, understand why you need to actually diversify into a little bit of Bitcoin, which is why I need you to subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it if you could help me spank the YouTube algorithm to get this message out in front of more people before it's too late. And it is going to be too late. It's not like any other asset, because there is only 21 million Bitcoin. So there is a time where it is too late. That time for each of us is different, because the pricing out of one of us is different. You can price me out at a different point. You can price yourself out and everyone else watching this video. But there is a point at which you will get priced out. So that's why please subscribe and help me spank the YouTube algorithm to get this message out. Now, if you are a real estate investor and you own a bunch of commercial property and you've seen what the government has done over, the flu season that we had, and you are, let's say you're a landlord of residential buildings, and the reason why I'm saying this is I'm focusing on the larger investor in real estate. I'm focusing on the larger capital allocators, because the small capital allocators, like my parents, for example, relatively smaller than compared to the institutional ones, are going to move the last, right? Are going to move last. If you are a real estate investor and you're watching this and you've got yourself an allocation into Bitcoin, you don't understand how monumentally early you are compared to the rest of the $330 trillion real estate market that's out there. You are monumentally early. Monumentally early. You're not even supposed to be here. You're not even supposed to know what Bitcoin is. Right? If it was up to them, if it was up to the they in the world, you wouldn't even know what Bitcoin is until they had control of it. Right now, they're trying to play catch up. But if you own, let's say, a building that is, got, let's say 200 doors in it, and you're sitting there going, wait a second, the government just came in and said, hey, you can never, ever collect rent on this for the next 9 months. Right? Imagine living through that. Right? Imagine living through a reality that the government is in complete control of your wealth if you're a real estate investor. The one asset that they told you would give you the freedom that you thought you wanted, and the government is in complete control of it, because you can't do. What are you going to do about it? Right? What are you going to do about it? So this obviously inspired a lot of real estate investors, especially in the US, to move from blue states like California to red states like Florida and operate business there. But now we're 3 years later. In 2020, that might have been a good idea. But now you're 3 years later, the competition has gone through the roof. Miami is 3 times more expensive than it was in 2020. And so you look at that and you go, what do I do now? Right? What do I do now? Just wait until the government says, okay, you can come and do business again in California because we were wrong. They cleaned up the damn streets for President Xi, and then 2 weeks later, the homeless people are back. You think they give a shit? They don't care about you. They don't care about your wealth. But you're a property investor, and it's unfortunate because you can't move that property. So what do you do? What do you do? How much pain is it going to take? This is the real question I have. How much pain is it going to take for there to be a 0.1% capital flight from existing real estate? I'm not talking about 1%. Hear me correctly. I'm not talking about 1%. I'm talking about 0.1%. How long will that take? Right? That's the real question here. How long will it take for real estate investors to realize commercial property is done because so many people are now working remote, working from home. I can literally talk to you from here and influence, millions of dollars of capital movement from YouTube. YouTube is the single most important platform when it comes to thinking and thoughts around investing that there is out there. That's why I don't focus on anything else. My guy, created a TikTok and an Instagram and this, that, and the other. I don't focus on it. I focus on YouTube because it's the single most important one. And I can do this from anywhere in the world. And you can also move capital from anywhere in the world. How long is it before a commercial, institutional capital allocator? I'm not talking about emotional capital allocators, right? Which is more retail. I'm talking about ruthless, numbers-driven, focused on ROI. How long until they realize that we maybe need to pull out 0.1% out of our real estate allocation? Because the truth is that 0.1% coming out of that real estate allocation equals $1 million Bitcoin. And you might go, oh, that sounds crazy. Well, here's how the maths work. There are some very, very smart mathematicians that are employed at Bank of America, and I've been talking about the bull market multiple. Probably the first person that ever started talking about it, because I started talking about it the week after Bloomberg reported on Bank of America's findings, while everyone was saying, no, that's crazy, it's got to be 3-1. And now it's being proven to you every time there's a pump in the market. Just saw, sub $1 billion come in when there was the fake ETF tweet, pushed the market up by $57 billion. That's not a 3-1 multiple. So these guys basically concluded that for every dollar that goes into Bitcoin, the market cap moves by 118, and that's obviously flexible. It's not fixed. But what that means is that $180 billion going into Bitcoin out of the $330 trillion that there is, right? Out of the $330 trillion that there is, let's say 180 to 300 billion. That's it. And it's not a lot when you think about it, right? It sounds like a lot when I say 180, 300 billion. The whole market is $330 trillion. We're talking about fractions of a percent moving out and going into Bitcoin because it is property that I can move anywhere in the world at the flash of a flash of thought. Oh, okay, cool. There's need for property in Singapore. Let's go. Move the Bitcoin to Singapore. Oh, there's a need for property in London. Okay, move the property to London. How long before those capital allocators, the smart ones, the unemotional ones, the ruthless ones, the killers, the accountants, the nerds, the lawyers, figure out that just by putting a 0.1% allocation in Bitcoin, they can outperform any other fund that's out there that's investing in real estate? I don't think it takes that long, especially now that the asset is becoming normalized. That's the key point. The asset is becoming normalized. And that 0.1%, 180 to 300 billies going into Bitcoin over a short period of time is going to take Bitcoin's price to $1 million a coin. This, by the way, does not include retail buying. Doesn't include me and you buying it. It doesn't include inflow from newly printed money. I'm assuming that no more dollars are ever printed ever again. This is just existing real estate market cap. I'm assuming that there's no inflow from stocks. I'm assuming that there's no inflow from bonds. I'm assuming that there's no inflow from gold. I'm assuming that there's no development of foreign currency transfers on top of Bitcoin, which is a $7 trillion daily market. I'm assuming that the FASB accounting rule changes mean, and everyone just ignores Bitcoin. All publicly traded companies just ignore Bitcoin. I'm also completely ignoring the effect of the halving that's coming up to halve the supply. I'm also completely ignoring the fact that the HODL rate, the number of people choosing to hold Bitcoin as the price goes up, continues to go up. I'm definitely not taking into account the ease of the onboarding coming in with the new spot Bitcoin ETF that will be coming in January, as Bloomberg Intelligence points out. All I'm saying is, what does it take for the most ruthless capital allocators in the world in real estate to turn around and say, we should probably allocate 0.1%? of our portfolio to Bitcoin. Not 1%, not 5%, definitely not 10%. 0.1%. And that capital influx takes the price of Bitcoin to $1 million. And then you know what happens? Everyone else takes notice. Then you go from 0.1 now. If I want a competitive advantage against that fund, I now need 0.2. So then you start building on that side. Then the stocks guy looks at you and he goes, wait a second. They've got a real estate fund and it's outperforming my equities portfolio. I better get some Bitcoin. Then the gold guy goes, hey, wait a second. I'm tired of being victimized by gold and its doom and gloom boomer attachment. I'm going to sell some of that gold and get into Bitcoin. Then the corporate CEOs get pressured because the board the board is like, wait a second, you haven't generated us any returns whatsoever. You better get your shit together and better start putting some money capital into Bitcoin to increase my share price. Then you got retail that finally jumps in, sees the price go up to a few $100,000. Is like, oh shit, I got to get in on this, and gets in on it. The real question is when does that ruthless killer, capital allocator, nerd, lawyer, accountant, when does the switch flip for them that they need a 0.1% allocation and it outperforms everyone else that they're competing with, and they can move the property, and they're no longer subject to local government BS, and they can be in charge and control of their wealth? When do they realize? Because you might be attached to your real estate, and you might be attached to your investments. They're not. They're attached to returns because their income is completely dependent on the returns that they can generate for their clients. So the question isn't, when does 10% this, 10% that? My question is this: when does 0.1% decide that it's time to get into Bitcoin? That's all it is, 0.1%. And again, I'm not including any other dollars that will ever be printed. Talking about 0.1% of existing real estate market cap. And the difference is that you have got until then to realize. You don't think that they've already woken up to this? You don't think that they pay attention to BlackRock? You don't think that they pay attention to Fidelity? You don't think they pay attention to the SEC? You and I might be sitting here listening to morons on the internet, but they're not. They're listening to tax code. They're listening to BlackRock. They're listening to Fidelity. They're listening to all their advisors, and they're being told Bitcoin is outperforming all other investments, and you probably need an allocation to this. And they're preparing. Are you prepared? Are you prepared while they're preparing? Remember, as they only need 0.1% of a move to completely and utterly outprice you. Your dreams of ever owning one Bitcoin will go out the window if they move 0.1%. Not 1%, not 5%, not 10%, 0.1%. But despite all of this, there are still only 3 rules to Bitcoin. Step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.